I'm sorry. At the gazebo, I clammed up because...
It don't work for me.
Why is that?
Because I love you.
Yeah,
Did I do something wrong?
No. It's this place.
The wind carried a whisper through the open fields, a whisper that sounded like a memory. Amy's eyes followed the long road ahead, but her heart was somewhere behind her back in the days when Ty's laughter filled the air. Pike River wasn't just a place on a map. It was a doorway to the past, a place where every tree, every breeze, still remembered them, because some memories don't fade. They wait, quietly, until you return. The road to Pike River stretched endlessly under the wide Alberta sky. Golden fields waved in the wind as Nathan's truck moved steadily through the quiet countryside. Amy sat in the passenger seat, her gaze lost beyond the glass. The soft hum of the engine filled the air, but inside her mind, there was only silence, a silence full of memories. Every turn of the wheel brought her closer, not just to a destination, but to a time she thought she had left behind. The sunlight danced across her face, the same light that once fell over her and Ty as they rode through these fields years ago. She could almost hear his laugh, warm, teasing, alive, as if the wind itself was carrying his voice back to her. Pike River. The name itself stirred something deep in her heart. It was where their love had found its roots, where dreams were built, where promises were made. And though life had moved forward, some part of her still lived there, untouched by time. Amy glanced down at the bracelet on her wrist, the one Ty had given her. She turned it slowly between her fingers, the small silver charm glinting in the sun. The simple motion said more than words ever could. It was comfort. It was pain. It was memory. Nathan looked her way briefly, his eyes kind but quiet. He didn't ask questions. He didn't have to. He understood that some silences are sacred. She caught his glance and gave a faint smile when that tried to say, "I'm fine." Even though her heart was heavy with the weight of the past. Outside, the land rolled by in waves of gold and green. Horses grazed lazily in the distance. A hawk circled high above, its shadow gliding over the road ahead. The world looked peaceful, but inside Amy, a storm of feelings began to rise. Some places never really let you go. You carry them with you in the sound of the wind, in the smell of the rain, in the soft ache that comes when you remember someone you can never forget. The truck slowed as they reached the edge of the valley. Ahead, the wooden sign came into view. "Welcome to Pike River." Amy's breath caught for a moment. Her eyes softened, and for just a second, she could almost see Ty standing there, his smile gentle, his presence so real it hurt. But when she blinked, he was gone. Nathan noticed the way she looked at the sign. He didn't say a word. He knew what this place meant to her and that some memories aren't meant to be spoken. Yasath na body. Some bonds can't be shared or explained. They live quietly between two souls. Even when only one remains. The truck came to a stop by the riverbank. Amy stepped out slowly, her boots pressing into the dirt, the wind brushing through her hair. The water shimmered under the afternoon light, calm and endless. She stood still for a moment, letting the sound of the river wrap around her. She had come here for a reason, to help with the new horse clinic, to start something new, but as she looked around, she realized it was something deeper. Sometimes you return not to move on, but to remember why you loved so deeply in the first place. The screen fades to black, the sound of the river lingering like a heartbeat. The truck rolled to a slow stop near the wooden fence that framed Pike River. The afternoon sun spilled across the valley like liquid gold. Amy stepped out quietly, her boots touching the familiar ground that still remembered her footsteps. For a moment, she didn't move. The air here felt different, warmer, thicker, full of voices that belonged to another time. A faint breeze brushed against her cheek, carrying the smell of pine and water. She looked toward the river, and for a heartbeat, the world seemed to blur. It was as if time had folded in on itself, bringing the past and the present together in a single breath. She could almost see Ty standing there, sleeves rolled up, smiling, that easy smile that always made her feel safe. But the space beside her was empty now, filled only by the whisper of the wind. Nathan joined her, standing a little behind. He didn't speak. He just watched her, understanding that silence was the only language that fit moments like these. Amy ran her hand along the old wooden railing by the riverbank, the same one she and Ty had leaned against years ago. Her fingers found a small carving, T+A, faded but still there. Her throat tightened. Some memories were carved deeper than wood. She walked slowly toward the water. The surface shimmered in the light, rippling softly with the current. The sound of it pulled her back to laughter, back to shared secrets, back to the warmth of hands she could no longer hold. The memories came quietly at first, like footsteps on soft ground, and then all at once, a flood she couldn't stop. She closed her eyes. The past came alive behind them, the splash of hooves in the river, Ty's voice calling her name, the smell of wet earth after rain. For a second, she felt the world tilt. She wasn't standing in the present anymore. She was back in that moment, back when everything felt whole. Her lips parted in a trembling breath. Ya Sathna body, the bond that never fades, the love that doesn't end. When she opened her eyes again, the vision was gone. Only the ripples remained, catching bits of sunlight and breaking them into tiny stars. Nathan stepped forward quietly, his voice gentle. "It's beautiful here," he said. Amy nodded, forcing a small smile. Yeah, it always was. They stood side by side, saying nothing more. The silence between them was peaceful, not empty. Nathan wasn't trying to fill the space that Ty once held. He was simply standing beside her, steady and kind, a reminder that life still moved forward. Even after loss, the camera could show wide shots of the valley golden fields, the glimmering water, the tall trees swaying gently in the wind. The light shifted softly as the sun began to lower, painting everything in amber and rose. Amy took a deep breath. The ache in her heart hadn't left, but it felt quieter now, softened by the stillness around her. She realized something as she looked out over the river. She didn't come here to forget Ty. She came here to remember him without breaking. She turned to Nathan, her eyes calm but filled with emotion. "Let's go see the stables," she said. He nodded, and together they started walking toward the path lined with wildflowers. The camera followed them from behind, their shadows stretching long across the earth as the light began to fade behind them. The river continued to flow, constant, gentle, endless. The light had begun to fade, soft and golden, brushing against the ripples of Pike River. The air was still, almost holding its breath, as Amy stood near the water. Her reflection wavered on the surface, half present, half past. Then, as the wind stirred the leaves, the memories began to rise like waves. A horse's distant neigh broke through the silence. For a heartbeat, Amy saw Spartan, young again, splashing in the river beside Ty. His laughter rolled through her mind, bright, warm, alive. She could see the way he'd looked at her that day, the way his eyes had spoken promises no words could match. The sound of the river turned into the rhythm of those moments, a rhythm her heart had never forgotten. She blinked, and the world shifted. Suddenly, the quiet meadow around her wasn't today's, it was years ago. She was there again, laughing as Ty chased her through the shallows, their boots soaked, their joy loud enough to wake the hills. Her cheeks ached from smiling, her hands cold from the water, but her heart felt whole. Then, just as quickly, it was gone. Only the present remained, Nathan's voice, gentle and distant, calling her name. She turned slightly, her eyes glistening but calm. He didn't ask what she'd seen. He didn't need to. Some moments can't be spoken. They're too sacred to share. Amy looked back at the water. The surface had settled again, quiet and smooth, like nothing had happened. But inside, she felt everything. The ache, the love, the loss. And yet, through the ache, there was a strange peace, the kind that comes when the pain finally begins to soften. "Ya Sathna body," she whispered under her breath. Some bonds can't be shared because they never end. They live on in every step forward, in every breath after goodbye. Nathan walked closer, careful not to break the stillness. "You okay?" he asked quietly. Amy nodded, her voice barely above the wind. "Yeah, I think I am." For the first time in a long while, she meant it. The camera could linger on her face, not broken, not fully healed, but glowing with quiet strength. The sun dipped lower, painting the world in warm amber. The sound of the river blended with the faint hum of the wind through the trees. Amy took one last look at the water before turning away. The past wasn't gone. It had simply found its place inside her. It would always be there, not as pain anymore, but as memory, as love that had shaped who she was. As she and Nathan began walking back toward the path, the sky deepened to shades of orange and violet. Fireflies flickered in the tall grass. The world felt alive again. Amy didn't look back. She didn't need to. Pike River had given her what she came for, not answers, not closure, but peace. The camera followed their fading silhouettes, two figures walking side by side beneath the endless Alberta sky. The water behind them shimmered like liquid gold, carrying the reflections of what once was, and the hope of what could still be. Morning light spilled across Pike River like a soft promise. Mist floated above the water, and the world felt reborn, calm, gentle, still. Amy stood at the edge of the valley, watching the sunlight crawl across the hills. Her heart, once heavy with memory, now felt lighter, not empty, but calm, like the silence after a long storm. Nathan was nearby, quietly packing up the truck. He glanced at her but didn't speak. He didn't need to. Some mornings don't need words, they just need stillness. Amy breathed deeply, the cold air filling her chest, washing away the ache that had clung to her for so long. For the first time, she wasn't running from her memories. She was standing with them side by side, unafraid. Ty wasn't gone. He was part of everything around her, the sound of the river, the light on the water, the warmth in her chest. She smiled softly, realizing that love doesn't disappear when someone leaves. It changes. It becomes quieter, deeper, woven into who you are. As the wind brushed against her hair, a single leaf drifted down from the tree above and landed near her boots. She bent to pick it up, small, delicate, perfect. She looked at it for a moment before tucking it gently into her pocket. A small piece of Pike River to carry home, a reminder of where she had been and who she had become. Nathan called out softly, "Ready?" Amy turned, her smile reaching her eyes this time. "Yeah, I'm ready." They walked toward the truck, their steps slow but steady. The path ahead was bright, bathed in gold. The camera followed them from behind, two figures walking away from the river, leaving the ghosts of yesterday behind but carrying their warmth forward. Before getting into the truck, Amy looked back one last time. The water shimmered under the morning sun, endless and alive. In the reflection, she almost saw Ty again, not as a shadow, but as light. She whispered, "Thank you," and the wind seemed to answer. As the truck rolled down the dusty road, the ranch faded into the distance. Birds flew across the horizon, and the river glistened like a ribbon of gold beneath the sky. The music swelled softly, hopeful, gentle, pure. Sometimes healing doesn't come in one moment. It comes quietly, like dawn, slow, tender, and full of light. Amy had found hers, not by forgetting, but by remembering with peace. The final shot lingered on the valley, the place where love once bloomed, where grief once lived, and where peace had finally returned. The camera pulled back slowly, the world growing smaller as the sky grew brighter. Then, in soft words across the screen, "Some journeys take us back, not to relive the past, but to learn how to let it rest." The music faded, the screen turned black, and the sound of the river, steady and eternal, was the last thing left. The road stretched ahead like a ribbon of gold under the morning sun. Dust lifted behind the truck as it moved slowly through the valley, carrying two souls who had both found something they weren't looking for. Pike River faded in the rearview mirror, but its echo lingered in the air, in the silence, in the heartbeat of the land itself. Amy sat by the window, her hair moving softly in the breeze that slipped through the half-open glass. She didn't look back anymore. She didn't need to. The ache that used to follow her everywhere had changed, not gone, but gentler now, like a soft scar that no longer hurt to touch. Her eyes followed the horizon, wide and endless. She was thinking about Ty, but for the first time, the thought didn't break her. It warmed her instead. Nathan drove quietly beside her, one hand steady on the wheel, the other resting near the radio. A familiar tune played, slow country, full of heart. Amy smiled faintly. It was the kind of song Ty would have hummed while working in the barn, his voice rough but kind. She didn't turn off the music. She let it play, let it fill the space between them. "Thank you for bringing me here," she said softly, her eyes still on the road. Nathan glanced at her, his expression warm. "You brought yourself," he said. "I just came along for the ride." Amy smiled again, a small, knowing smile. He was right. This wasn't about the place or the past. It was about her, about learning that grief isn't a chain that holds you down, but a bridge that carries you forward. She leaned her head against the window and watched the world roll by the hills. The fences, the wide open sky. The truck turned a corner, and Heartland came into view. In the distance, the white fences, the red barn, the home that had seen her through every storm. The horses grazed lazily in the fields, the air shimmering with the soft light of a new day. Amy felt something shift inside her, a piece that had been missing for years. She thought of Ty again, and her heart whispered, "I'm okay now." Not because she had stopped missing him, but because she had learned how to live with his memory, not as a wound, but as a part of her soul. As the truck pulled into the driveway, Jack stepped out of the barn, wiping his hands on a cloth, his eyes warm and knowing. He didn't ask how it went. He could see the answer in Amy's smile. Lou stood nearby, waving softly, her face lighting up when she saw her sister's calm expression. Amy stepped out of the truck and took a deep breath. The air smelled like hay, sunshine, and home. She closed her eyes for a second, letting it sink in, the peace, the love, the quiet strength she had found again. Nathan unloaded the gear, giving her space to just stand there and breathe. In the distance, Spartan neighed softly, as if welcoming her back. Amy walked over, placing her hand on his mane. The horse leaned gently against her, and for a second, she felt Ty's presence again, not as a memory this time, but as something still alive in the rhythm of her world. The wind moved through the grass, whispering its familiar song. Amy looked up at the wide blue sky, her eyes shining with both tears and sunlight. "Thank you," she whispered, not to anyone in particular, maybe to Ty, maybe to the place that healed her, maybe to life itself. The camera pulled back slowly, Amy standing by Spartan, Nathan near the truck, Heartland glowing behind them in the morning light. The music rose, soft and hopeful, because healing isn't about forgetting. It's about remembering without pain. It's about learning that love never really leaves, it just changes its home. The screen faded to white, and the sound of the wind and distant laughter filled the final moment. Gentle, eternal, and full of life, evening crept softly over Heartland. The sky was brushed in shades of gold and rose, the kind of light that makes everything feel touched by grace. The fields stretched out endlessly, the horses moving slow and calm beneath the fading sun. Somewhere in the distance, the river shimmered faintly, Pike River, still flowing, still alive. Amy stood by the pasture fence, her arms resting lightly on the wooden rail. The wind played with her hair, carrying the faint scent of hay and pine. It was quiet, not the kind of silence that hurts, but the kind that heals, the kind that feels like home. Her eyes followed the horizon where the light met the land. For years, she had looked at that same horizon and felt something missing, a space that used to be filled by laughter, by love, by Ty. But tonight, the emptiness was gone. What remained was softer, gentler, a presence she couldn't see, but could always feel. The wind whispered again, low and kind, brushing past her like an old friend. And for a heartbeat, Amy smiled, because she knew. Love doesn't vanish with time. It settles into the smallest corners of your life, in the creak of the barn door, in the morning light through the window, in the laughter of the people who stay inside the barn. Nathan was tending to one of the horses. His movements were quiet, steady. When he looked up and saw Amy watching from the doorway, he gave a simple nod, no words, no questions, just a shared understanding. Sometimes peace doesn't need to be spoken. It just needs to be felt. Amy stepped into the barn, the wooden floor warm under her boots. She reached out to stroke Spartan's mane, her touch gentle and full of love. The horse leaned into her hand as if sensing everything she couldn't say. For a moment, time stood still, woman, horse, and memory bound by something unbreakable. Outside, The first stars began to appear, tiny sparks of light scattered across the wide Alberta sky. Amy looked up and let out a long, quiet breath. Somewhere deep inside, she knew Ty was out there, not gone, not lost, but woven into everything that still lived and breathed around her. She whispered softly into the wind, "I'll be okay." And the wind, almost an answer, brushed past her cheek like a touch she remembered. Nathan stepped beside her, standing in easy silence. The two of them looked out at the night, to lives shaped by loss, bound by kindness, walking the same road toward healing. The camera slowly pulled back, the barn glowing faintly in the dusk, the horses grazing under the stars, the sky stretching wide and eternal. The world was quiet now, peaceful, whole. And then, in soft text across the screen, "Some stories don't end when someone leaves. They live on in the people they loved, the places they touched, and the hearts they changed forever." The music rose gently, a tender guitar and piano melody, fading with the hum of the night wind. The last image lingered on Amy, standing beneath the stars, her silhouette framed by the barn light, strong, steady, and full of hope. The screen slowly faded to black. The sound of the river, calm and endless, was the final echo.